let me take you to the panel discussion number 3. And the topic, here it goes. Diagnostic AI and emerging technologies, regulatory pathways for IVDs, SAMAD and digital health devices. Ladies and gentlemen, to moderate the session, may I invite Mr. Jatin Mahajan, sir, Managing Director, Mitra and Co. Limited, one of the most India's leading in vitro diagnostic companies known for its contribution towards affordable and indigenous diagnostic technologies. And ladies and gentlemen, now I'm inviting our esteemed panelists for this discussion. And to start with, Mr. Bala Murugan Ramasamy. Sir, Executive VP, HCL Technologies, associated with Enterprise Strategies. His work focuses on leveraging emerging technologies, AI, digital engineering, and healthcare IT solutions to strengthen the future of connected healthcare ecosystem globally. Mr. Venkatraman Bhagwati, sir, Head of Quality Regulatory and Government Affairs, Univ Labs Technologies Private Limited, bringing extensive expertise in regulatory affairs, quality system compliance strategies, and policy engagement with the diagnostic and MedTech sector. Mr. Nitin Vadwa, sir, General Manager, Sabia Diagnostic India Private Limited, associated with advancing specialized diagnostic technology and strengthening clinical diagnostic capabilities in India. Dr. Pulkit Sarma, sir, Dr. Pulkit Verma, sir, Scientist ICMR. Thank you so much all the panelists for being present on this stage. And here it goes. The next 30 minutes belongs to you. Please take the leverage to it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. And, as informed to me that, we have a strict 30 minutes. So in the interest of time, what we will be doing is we'll be restricting ourselves to 30 minutes only. And ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. I hope you have had a good, sumptuous lunch. And the topic for the panel discussion is on diagnostics, AI, and emerging technologies. Basically, to do with the artificial intelligence, SAMD, which is software as a medical device, and the digital health devices, which is nowadays called as wearables, which most of us are wearing. And as we traverse in the journey of our industry, we see that a lot of changes are now happening in the marketplace due to the emerging technologies which are panning out, or with respect to the science and biology. So now things are evolving at a much faster pace than what they were happening earlier. Now, if we have to be a Viksit Bharat 2047 and we have a target of around $50 billion, that by 2030 we need to be a $50 billion, then we definitely need to do something out of the box. And that's where, my discussion comes in. And people who are not familiar with diagnostics, because since morning we have been talking about medical devices. Now diagnostics is very, very different from the medical devices, for the very fact that medical devices are more in the preventive side and they get in contact with the human body or with the human blood. Whereas IVD is our test which are done outside the human body, but we use only blood, sera, or any kind of other body fluidic samples. So as we progress, what we are seeing during the COVID times also is 70% of the clinician decisions are based on these IVD tests only. And as we move ahead in this journey of lab to patient experience, we see that now three things are becoming ingrained into the ecosystem, which is AI, software as a medical device, and the wearable devices. And these tools are no doubt very, very beneficial because uh, they help the doctor to analyze, evaluate, and give a particular conclusion. But having said that, it is the human touch which we call as empathy. That's the human feel factor, wherein the empathy part then communicates with the patient on the way forward. Now, the challenge which comes into the system is as these AI systems now coming into the mainstream, definitely the first aspect is with respect to the regulations. Conventionally and traditionally, what is happening is that the regulations are more geared up for the conventional hardware part, but not the AI, and that's where the gray area is. Still, the ecosystem has not evolved, to such extent that it can integrate AI into the workflows. And also, there needs to be a lot of clinical validations. One of the biggest challenges in India, I was talking to my colleague here during the lunchtime, and one point which came out was data. Now, when we look at data, we always cite US data or a European data. But when we look at the Indian data, that is something which is missing. One of the things when we look at IVD is the clinical validation. Now, how do we make the validation so perfect or so aligned or harmonized with the global benchmarks that IVD test which works in India is equally capable to give an equivalent result in the European market, in the Southeast Asian market, or in the US market. Now that is something, it's a point of deliberation. So regulations also need to be globally aligned in line with the current standards, practices, and norms. Now, in this session, we will definitely move beyond the surface level discussions and we will dive deep to hear from the policy makers at ICMR, the clinicians who use these tools on daily basis, the manufacturers of the hardware and the software both, who are integrating such tools into their solutions. So having said that, my first question is to Dr. Pulkit Verma from ICMR. Sir, as AI-based diagnostic and health tech tools are flooding the market from algorithmic imaging analysis and automated clinical decisions to support the AI-powered screening platforms and digital health interventions. So what are your views on this particular subject?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mahajan, for setting the context right for and making the differentiation that what are the difference between software as a medical device and diagnostics. So the thing is that AI is coming in big in all the parameters or inherent parameters of life, and medical devices and diagnostics are no different. But here we have to understand that. Let me put an example. So in today's era, AI is being used to defeat a maybe chess master also, and at the same time, AI is being used to analyze any of the paths, like maybe even better than any pathologist. But the thing is, certain use cases they depend on only deterministic probability, where you have very limited scopes and well-defined outcomes. But when the probability comes into picture, in the first use case, you have just only a game to lose. But in second scenario, you have a life to lose at stake. So in those parameters of the dice, I was discussing in one of my co-panelists, Dr. Bala Murugan sir, that he being other side of the table, regulatory table, what are his personal views on this? And he actually rightly pointed out that as AI is evolving day by day, so regulatory framework across the world, not just in India, is actually evolving. Means I agree that it's not that mature at this point in time, but so do the AI. AI models also not that mature at this point in time. So as a regulatory perspective, You name any regulatory authority, maybe ICMR or whatever the case, maybe CDSO, all the aspects are taken into consideration and the regulatory framework will surely evolve with time. But one thing which is taken into consideration is that, as you rightly mentioned, the AI may be used to screen a patient. Now, screening being just a preventive sort of measure, the regulatory framework need not be that stringent in those cases. Other case may be much higher stringent parameter or rigor may be applied where AI is being used to maybe help in decision making. And where AI is being used to make some diagnostic decision completely on automation, in those parameters, the regulatory framework will be obviously much more rigorously applied so that somebody's life is at stake. So all those parameters must be taken into consideration. But having said all this, fairness is not something which is good to have in this such algorithms. Fairness is much implied. And one last point I'd like to add is that clinical trials which we mentioned, those are basically just snapshots in time. They don't apply to AI algorithm as such because the data changes over the period of days, not based on months. So I cannot have a AI-based algorithm approved just based on the point in time it was submitted to me. As a regulator, we need to take care of all the data parameters as the same algorithm is being used on day-to-day device basis in any production environment. So that's my view personally on these aspects.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the things what you have mentioned is that this landscape is evolving. So instead of having a static regulation, it also needs to be in a dynamic mode.
Yes, sir.
Now, coming to, and as you have also mentioned that the algorithm of AI also needs to be kind of regulated. Otherwise, the data sets will change. So my question is to Mr. Venkat, because there needs to be a sandbox kind of a system, because now even the GPTs that we use, they are evolving over a period of time, and we are sharing a lot of personal information on AI. So probably there needs to be a kind of a sandbox kind of a system where in the privacy or in the safety or certain certain terms and conditions, we are able to actually test out the algorithm of the AI. So another important point is that in India, DPDC Act, the Digital Prevention Act, wherein the privacy of the patient is of utmost importance. So my question is to you, Mr. Venkat. Your organization has gone to US FDA for multiple devices. How do you see the global cybersecurity regulations impacting the Indian medtech sector?
Thank you very much, sir. So I think there are two questions. First, with respect to AI, and second, with respect to cybersecurity, if I understand correctly. With respect to AI, from my experience in testing, the way to test AI-based algorithms is slightly different than the regular testing. So where you simply have a unit testing, integration testing, and so on. In the case of AI, we need to understand the particular technology. So whether we are using machine learning, or we are using deep neural networks, or we are using some other kind of a model. And depending upon that, each one has their own testing methodologies. And increasingly now I think there is a lot of activity from ISO, International Standards Organization, and new standards are being developed in this area. And also in India, I would like to raise one point is that there are very few testers for AI. So there is an organization called ISTQB, International Software Quality and Testing Board, which has from a few years a separate syllabus for AI testing, and increasingly IITs and all, they are also coming up with the courses. Now the second, I believe that answers some points. And relating to the second part of cybersecurity, yes, my organization Unilabs, we have gone through several successful US FDA submissions. And India is also evolving in the cyber security regulations, but we are one of the most threatened countries in this area. Both, I think sir would know, both ICMR as well as AIMS and several medical institutions and hospitals in India have had ransomware attacks in, I think, 2022 and 23, and last year specifically, considering the global environment. So there is a, like, you know, a lot of evil actors are trying to threaten us. And this is also increasingly important because nowadays medical devices are also being deployed at the battlefield. There are a lot of battlefield, medical device solutions. So we need to evolve. And so typically, if you would say, I'll share the briefly in 2 minutes. So a country like US always looks first at the software bill of materials. So the regulators there, they look at it very seriously. This involves components which are developed by the manufacturer, which are from the third party or which are open source. And then they do some kind of a threat modeling or risk assessment. And again, there are several models available from organizations like Mitra Corporation, so specifically for embedded devices and biostatistical software and so on. And then we implement the cybersecurity controls, such as authentication controls, authorization controls, and recovery controls, and so on. And last but not the least, in the case of medical devices, as you know, everything has to be integrated to the QMS, which is the ISO 13485 standard. So that is also important. And in addition to robust post-market surveillance with respect to cybersecurity.
Thank you. So I think that's a very interesting insight into the complexities that goes into building up of a medical device. It is not just ISO 13485, but then the rules of cyber security and the other security standards kick in. And what we see is just a simple device, but then we understand what goes behind building up that medical device. So having mentioned that, now I come to Mr. Bala. As we look at the digital in the digital health, what specific technology capabilities such as Edge AI or LOT or IoT must the Indian diagnostic companies prioritize right now to ensure their devices are future ready for the global software-led medtech space?
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you very much for giving an opportunity to part of this panel. See, in the introduction, Jatin talked about how medical devices are different from IVD. So in the past, the IVD devices or IVD instruments, they were actually generating the test results. But today, they are giving an insight. And tomorrow, it is going to predict the diseases based on a lot of algorithm. So that is the transformation that IVD industry is going through. Now, to really adapt to this, what the global corporations are doing, in HCL Tech, we work with global companies for the last 26 years. We are their predominantly IVD companies. They partner with HCL Tech primarily as part of their digital strategy. So we have some visibility of what they are doing. So I will basically summarize based on our learnings. So now, which they were heavily investing on the following technologies to stay ahead or to achieve the transformation, what we are expecting here. Number one is basically the cloud engineering, data engineering, AI, lab automation. So these are the areas where there is a heavy investment going on. The second aspect is the partnership. For example, I was telling the global leaders, they have partnered with HCL or, other companies in India. So the collaboration becomes very critical because IVD companies cannot do everything on their own within their team. So they have to necessarily collaborate with the technology companies, with the semiconductor companies in terms of designing, developing maybe sensors. And The other area there where we need to focus is partner with a lot of startup companies. If you go and see the news item in the last few years, good amount of acquisitions are happening. So if you have to accelerate your AI adoption in some of your products, definitely acquisition can be definitely better route, acquisition or partnership. So these are the three things in terms of technology skill plus the strategies I have observed with some of the global leaders. And in India, many of the IVD companies and startups, they are focusing on the priorities which is set by government. There is a great support that's happening from the government in terms of producing devices which is affordable, accessible, which is fit for resource constrained settings. There's a lot of focus happening there. So, if we combine these two, India is in a very unique position to really, become a global leader in these segments.
Okay, I think what we understand here is that Indian companies are very good as far as the kits and reagents are concerned, the machine designing and the utilization is concerned. But between the parts, what we need is a collaboration, which is the software part, then put a AI tool and then sandbox it so that we can get the desired results and results in terms of prediction of a particular disease. I think very well summarized also in terms of collaboration. I think that's how we are able to grow also. Now let's hear from an MNC company. Nitin Wadhwa heads Sybia Diagnostics, which is a company based out of France. And he heads the Indian operations. And my question to you is, local innovation in order to scale must travel. Mr. Wadhwa, from your global vantage point, how vital is the alignment of the Indian quality standards with international norms like the IVDR? Can Indian players truly capture significant export market without a complete overhaul of our current domestic quality ecosystem?
I think, thank you organizers for having me here, and thanks Jatin for the question. I think more important is, rather than talking about alignment, it's about the global harmonization, which you mentioned in the beginning itself. It's all about having that global harmonization with the international standards. I don't feel the need of reinventing the wheel. We can pick up a simple example from the real diagnostic world. We are a diabetes capital in India today. Look at HbA1c test, which is a very simple, straightforward test, but it is one of the globally accepted parameters now, thanks to the programs like NGSP and IFCC standards. So because of that, we have already achieved global harmonization when it comes to HbA1c like test. So it's something similar. So if India really wants to see itself as a global leader in the IVD sector, what I really feel is there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Let's focus on the AQI. It's not the air quality index what I talk to. For me, in the IVD industry or the healthcare industry, actually, patient is always in the center of everything, and the AQI surrounds him. The AQI is affordability, quality, and innovation. So that's those three things. If somebody cracks that code really well in the healthcare today, I think nobody can stop us from reaching out to the top in the leadership position in the IVD industry. But what I really feel is, rather than looking at this as a barrier, we should look at global harmonization as, in terms of quality, we should really look at it as collaboration rather than we are just making it for them. So collaboration will be the key over there. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'd like to, summarize what the panel members have said. I think one key point which I pick up from Nitin is the interesting part is the AQI and, the acronym AQI. And then, if we are able to look at these benchmarks and then, have a global harmonization with some of these standards, we can get, a market access into certain geographies of the world. And when we look at AI, definitely it's an evolving space to be in. Regulations need not be in a static mode. Yes, the spaces are evolving, but then it can always be in a dynamic mode. What we have seen in COVID is, when the regulations, quality departments, when there is harmonization between the regulatory part, we have seen approvals happening so fast. And when there is harmonization in clinical evaluations also, the results are profound. I mean, it's very impactful. So if something of these things can be done in AI, I think the end result in terms of prevention, because, the real wealth is building up of the health. The health is what builds up the real wealth of the people of a particular area. And if we're able to build that particular part, I think this entire, discussions will have a profound impact. And with this, I will like to conclude, and I'd like to thank my audience, my delegates here for their patient listening, and I'd like to thank the panel members here for sharing their invaluable insights, knowledge, and experiences. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists present out here on the stage. Now, may I please welcome Mr. Afzal Kamal sir on the stage to facilitate our panel. I request all the panel members, please come forward for the photography session.